Let's see what arises as an answer to a question when we put together 3 little anecdotes. The first little anecdote is about a time when a certain Zen master was invited to a Christian monastery to give a talk to the monks who inhabited that monastery. And when the Zen master stood up in front of all of the monks, he told them that in the Zen tradition that the acolytes and seekers were exhorted to to chant the sutras, to practice mindfulness, to contemplate and try to solve the Zen koans that were given to them. But after the talk was over, one of the Christian monks stood up and asked the Zen master, saying, "You know, in our Christian tradition, we monks are told to pray fervently for blessings and grace to descend upon us. Is there anything like this in Zen?" And the Zen master responded by saying, "In Zen tradition, it is somewhat different, because in Zen we believe that God has already done his work." And then there's one of my very favorite stories, the simple story about an old man who was kneeling in a church, and the priest came by and saw him in supplication and prayer. And the priest went about his business, and every time he came back into the church, the old man was still kneeling deep, deep in prayer. So after at last the old man arose from his knees, the priest went over to him and said, "You were praying to God for so long. Would you mind sharing with me what it was that you were asking of him?" And the old man said, "I was not praying. I was not asking. I was listening." "Oh," said the priest, "well, would you dare to tell me what it is that God was saying to you?" And the old man said, "God wasn't saying anything. He was listening also." And then finally, there's a Rumi story about a man called Jalaluddin. Well, Jalaluddin was a player of the rabat, a very delicate instrument, and he played this instrument very well. But Jalaluddin was a melancholic. He was a depressive. He would often fall into deep, dark moods which took him into pathos and anguish and anxiety. So his mullah advised him to pray to God with all his might. But you know, Jalaluddin thought to himself, what a useless waste of breath it is to call on something like this. So he omitted to follow the advice of the mullah. But one night, after a particularly bad night of deep, deep sadness to the point of almost wanting to kill himself, he called on God. He called God's name throughout all the night. And at last he had a taste of the sweetness of being lost in prayer. But after continuing his practices for some while, the devil Iblis visited him and said, "Will you stop all that caterwailing? Who do you think you're calling on? Have you ever had a reply when you've called God, God, God?" Jalaluddin said, "No, there's never been any response." So the devil said, "Well, desist from all of that wailing." So Jalaluddin gave up his prayers. But one night, Jalaluddin had a dream. He had a dream that he had a terrible, terrible thirst. But when he tried to drink from the stream that was running nearby where he was, he found that he was enchained. There was even a bolt through his lips and through his tongue, so he could not drink from the pond, the stream that was in front of him. His thirst was very great, and he was at a loss. In his dream, feeling somewhat of the depression, the sadness that he felt in his daily life. But then, out of the ethers, there came a form that allowed itself to be seen as the one who is called Al-Qadir, the green one. That one who comes to man when he's in moments of desperation. And Qadir said to Jalaluddin, "Why did you not pray before you slept?" Jalaluddin tried to respond, but all that came out was a gargle and a moan from his captured lips and tongue. Al-Qadir said to Jalaluddin, "Let me tell you a story." He said there was a man who had a great, great thirst, but he was almost enshrined behind a high wall. He could hear faintly the sound of a running stream nearby, but he had no access to drink from this stream. But then, in desperation, he tore one of the bricks from that wall and threw it into the stream. And when he did, the sound of the stream became more clear to him. And so he took one by one the stones from his wall and threw them into the stream. The sound became a roar in his ears, and at last he was free to drink from that stream. Pray, Jalaluddin, pray. Out of the depths of his being, in his dream, Jalaluddin cried out from the very deepest part of his being, his soul. And suddenly the bolt was removed from his tongue and his lips. The chains fell from his legs and his hands, and he drank deeply from the stream in front of him. When Jalaluddin awoke from his dream, he went immediately to wash his hands and his feet, and laying down his prayer rug, he knelt in reverence, laying his head on his mat in supplication and prayer. The question that arises from these three is, what is the difference? What is your experience? What is the difference or the similarity or the relationship between these three stories? What's our experience? What's the difference between these stories or their similarity from our experience? What is the difference between importuning, using our talisman, our icon, to call on that power within us, and the listening? What is mindfulness? What's your experience? What do these stories tell us? Why do we pray? Why do we call, even when there's nothing out there to call on? What are we evoking? What is this power within? And what is the listening? What's the difference between the importuning and the listening? Because Al-Qadir said to Jalaluddin, don't you realize that the answer, I am here, is contained in the call? Don't you realize the answer, I am here, is contained in the call?
one of the things that, if we're going to be aware, is we need to listen more than we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an art, and most people don't have that balance.
Mm.
Most people want to talk more than they listen. So the karmic thing also is if you listen, you'll be heard as well. So the first story when he was talking about God was listening and he was listening, it was very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both listening together, so they were both catching signals.
Yes.
Silent signals. Listening.
Is there a meeting place between the two? The importuning and the listening? Is there a place?
When we call and when we put ourselves in the frequency of being in the depths of God and who we are, we open something so that both the calling with the listening, it's the same. When he says he listens, he's just opening so vastly to God that everything is here, so that it's man under my said always the grace is always here. We just have to turn the pot.
Okay.
And when the pot is there, we
Okay.
receive it.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean the answer is contained in the call? What is it we feel when our heart cries out, when we have a moment where a decision can't be made, or we're feeling that sorrow, that depth of despair? And we call.
Well, with every need there's always an answer.
Okay. So again, what does it mean? The answer is contained in the call.
So we have to listen.
I think it's the intent. If you're not, I quite like the thought of listening, because I don't like to, when it comes to prayer, I don't have to ask for anything,
I know.
but listening. However, if you're in that state, there's an intention of wanting to be with God. So, yes, it's the calling.
Right.
And in listening, you're intent on that too, but you know that it's right.
Okay.
Mindfulness, it's not a mind, it's quite a funny thing. It's going to one side of the chords to get the answer. It's not listening. The answer comes from call, from right.
Yes. Yes.
If you find yourself, if you hear yourself calling out, stop and try and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Years ago, I remember lying on my bed, and I was just, I screamed out for my father. I don't even remember what I was going through. And he rang, and I hadn't heard from him for years. And he was, I don't know if he was in another country, but he was a long way away. I hadn't spoken to him. And in that moment, I, from the depths, just went, oh, my dad. And he said, I don't know what made me pick up the phone, but Spring, my stepsister, said I should call you. And it was just a cry from I don't know where in me. But we were just, I was like, oh. It just came into my reality. But I wasn't wishing he would call, and I don't even know where it came from, but in that moment of despair or whatever I was going through, something knew what to call for.
Absolutely.
And he just rang. He didn't even know why he was calling.
No.
But Springsteen, I just got a feeling you should ring. And it was beautiful.
Yes.
It was a real, actually, call. I screamed out, and what did I just do?
Yes. Yeah.
Somewhere very deep.
Yes. That's where we have to go. Thank you.